Well, I hope everyone had a good spring break. My mom, probably 50 years ago, planted about 100 irises. And you fast forward 50 years, those turned into 10,000. And Deanne decided this week that we needed to go back to 100. So I'm thankful to be back in Sudan. All right, we're continuing in the life of Jacob. If you want to turn, we'll be looking Genesis 30 through about 31 today. But what we want to do is talk about the Laban in our life. We'd rather not. We'd rather talk about someone more pleasant, because our Laban is anything but pleasant. Our Laban is demanding. He's sensitive. He's conniving. He's deceptive. You know, there's always a card up his sleeve or fingers crossed behind his back. Our Laban is kind of like strep on the tonsils of our lives. You know, we'd like a day without him, but we're stuck. You know, our Laban might be an in-law, might be our boss. It could be the person who works right beside us. A future with no Laban, though, is probably not an option. Have you ever wondered why in the world God puts Labans in our lives? Jacob had to ask that question at least once a day for 5,110 days. That's the number of days he worked for the man. 14 years up to this point in our lesson, in our study, and he couldn't escape him. You remember, let me do just a quick review since it's been out for a few weeks. The original agreement was for 7 years for Laban. Pulled a wedding night trick, swapping Rachel with her older sister Leah, leaving Jacob with no option but to work 7 more years. Remember, in the Bible, the number 7 is significant. It means complete. And I can't help but think that's kind of an appropriate symbolism, because Jacob he had to feel like a complete fool working for this man, even for less than minimum wage. And he's trading his daughters like other people trade cattle. You know, Jacob gets his college degree at the College of Hard Knocks. And, the dean is his father-in-law / uncle, Laban. During the second set of 7 years, Jacob saw his family and his troubles just multiply. Remember, he gains 11 sons and a daughter. 7 children by Leah, 1 by Rachel, 2 by Rachel's maid Bilhah, and 2 by Leah's maid Zilpah. So Jacob arrives in Laban's camp with nothing. And after 14 stress-filled years, his headache says, you don't talk about increased, but his bank account hadn't. In fact, look in chapter 31, I think it's verse about 41. 10 times in 6 years, Laban altered his method of computing Jacob's wages. How would you like that? Look what he says. These 20 years, I've been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock, and you changed my wages 10 times. Jacob had to be thinking, is this how God rewards his children? Is this how God keeps his promises? What happened to just a few chapters earlier when we had the story of the ladder, and he's seeing this dream of angels ascending and descending. Why can't one of those angels pluck Laban out of his life? Where is God in the midst of this chaos? And every one of us have had that thought at some point in our lives. Where is God in all this? Now for Jacob, this answer comes in the form of a dream. And it's an odd one, the one that Larry read for us. Dreams are often, I've never had a normal dream, have you? They're always weird, especially if you take Tylenol PM. But Jacob tells Rachel and Leah about this one, about these streaked, speckled, and spotted sheep. Now, set those aside for a minute. We'll talk about those in just a little bit because they matter. But they matter less than the big news that he makes in verse, let me find it, verse 11. The angel God said to me in a dream, Jacob, and I said, here I am. He said, lift up now your eyes, see that all the male goats which are mating, striped, speckled, and molted, for I've seen all that Laban has been doing to you. There's the key. Because it didn't feel like it. And it didn't even look like it. But God had seen all that Laban was doing. God says, I've not turned away. I've not forgotten you. I've not dismissed your need. I have seen. So Jacob has, I think, at least two options. Number one, he can either trust God that yes, God has seen, or he can just grow anxious. He could either believe in the presence of heaven or, heed in the presence of problems. And if he focused on his problems, no one would have faulted him. But you know what? Jacob had done very little up to this point to show his faith. Yet it's about to change. And it's going to be a change for the better. But it's only momentary, but at least it's a change for the good. We've waited a decade and a half to see something good. Because we've seen the swindler swindle his brother, cheat his father. We've seen him stumble into Laban's camp and he's been so drunk on liquor he wakes up with the wrong bride. And then we've seen him sit in silence as his wives squabble and their hearts break. And we've seen him, if you remember last lesson, he's reaping what he sowed. But finally, something in Jacob begins to stir. He's going to turn in his resignation to his father-in-law. Look in chapter 30, verses 25 through 28. Now it came about when Rachel had borne Joseph that Jacob said to Laban, send me away that I may go to my own place, to my own country. Give me my wives, my children, for whom I have served you. Let me depart, for you yourselves know my service which I've rendered you. But Laban said to him, if now it pleases you, stay with me. I have divined, notice this, I've divined that the Lord has blessed me on your account. Now here's the thing about that statement. Laban's not a man of faith. He's not a seeker of God. But he's been getting richer each year since Jacob had been there. And he couldn't figure it out, so he says, I've come up with this divine inquiry. Yeah, we don't know if he checked with the palm reader of that day or tarot cards or what, but he finally realized that he was prospering because of Jacob. In fact, Jacob tells him, verses 29 and 30, he said to him, you yourself know how I've served you and how your cattle have fared with me, for you had little before I came, and it's increased to a multitude. And the Lord has blessed you wherever I turned. In other words, Jacob is telling Laban, you know what? You had this little bitty corner store, and I've turned it into a multi-million-dollar operation. Whatever I touch, the Lord blessed. And under my direction, your income is just multiplied. But now Jacob is saying, you know what? It's time for me to take care of my family. So Laban asked, what should I pay you? Look in 30, verses 31 and 33. So he said, what shall I give you? And Jacob said, you shall not give me anything. If you will do this one thing for me, I will again pasture and keep your flock. Notice what Jacob is wanting. Let me pass through your entire flock today, removing there every speckled and spotted sheep, every black one among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and such shall my wages be. All right, remember the dream that Larry read for us. In it, God told Jacob to build a flock with a bunch of streaked, speckled, spotted animals. So Jacob's going to obey. I mean, he offered to take as his wages a handful of black sheep. And Laban, he can't believe his ears. He's probably thinking, no wonder my son-in-law's broke. You know, you can't make a living raising a bunch of black sheep. And Laban thought Jacob was a fool. But Jacob's acting in faith. Verse 34 and 36. Laban said, good, let it be according to your word. So he removed on that day the striped, the spotted male goats, all the speckled and spotted female goats, every one with white in it, and the black ones among the sheep, and gave them to the care of his sons. But notice what he does. Did he give them to Jacob? No. Verse 36. He put a distance of 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flock. So you know what? We have Laban cheating his son-in-law again. But Jacob doesn't react in anger. Instead, he decides, okay, I'm going to set about building my own flock. Now here's kind of a strange part of the story, verse 37 through 39. Jacob took fresh pods of poplar and almond and plane trees, peeled white stripes in them, exposing the white which was in the rods. He set the rods which he had peeled in front of the flocks in the gutters, even in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, and they mated when they came to drink. So the flocks mated by the rods, and the flocks brought forth striped, speckled, and spotted. Yeah, you read that and you think, what in the world's going on here? I mean, is it a superstition or folklore or, was Jacob ahead of his time? Did he know some type of science about these trees that cause animals to be speckled? I mean, some scholars think so. Jacob's streaking the bark from the branches, they say, may have exposed some form of nutrient that when they drank, it changed the color of the coats of the young that they bore. So over the next 6 years, Jacob puts this unique breeding plan to work. And notice the result, verse 43. So the man became exceedingly prosperous and had large flocks and female and male servants and camels and donkeys. And God rewards Jacob's faith. God used Laban to teach Jacob to trust God. Now we know, Jacob didn't like Laban. I'm guessing there are a few people that liked Laban. He wanted to leave him. But here's the thing, and here's where the lessons get tough. Jacob became a better man because of Laban. And might God be saying the same thing to us? He might be saying, I see what's happening. I know the manipulation. I know the unfairness. I know the disregard of your feelings. And I see. But I'm using this to train you. And God's prone to do that. Look real quickly. Read one other verse. Turn to Hebrews 12. Let me just read Hebrews 12, verse 8, and also verse 10. Hebrews 12, 8, and verse 10. But if you are without discipline, of which all have become partakers, then you're illegitimate children and not sons. Verse 10, for they disciplined us for a short time as seemed best to them, but He, talking about God, disciplines us for our good, so that we may share in His holiness. Philippians 2:13 says this, God is at work in you both to will and to work for His good pleasure. Rather than grumble about the people who irritate us, maybe we need to see them for who they are. They could be God's training tool in our lives. Now, I can guarantee us this, and we know this, at some point, someone somewhere, they're going to boil our blood, right? Now, they may not be the scoundrel that Laban is, but even those closest to us hurt us. And the temptation is to retaliate. But don't give in. Don't fight Laban on Laban's terms. Respond to Laban with faith in God. Take the high road. Jacob did, at least in this part of the story. And at the end of 6 years, Jacob had enough riches and he'd had enough of Laban. He loaded up and he leaves for Canaan. And Laban pursues him, and we'll see more about this story next week. He accuses Jacob of being a thief. But Jacob had been with Laban now for 20 years. And he not only survived his season with Laban, he actually ends up thriving. But we learned this lesson. God used Laban to shape Jacob. Now let me close with just 4 thoughts here and overall lessons, I think, and then a couple other little thoughts. Lesson number 1, family can take advantage of us, and they usually do. Number 2, hurting people hurt people. Number 3, ultimately, God handles unfair treatment. Let God take care of our Labans. And number 4, know that we will encounter people who seek to hurt or harm us. And sometimes, people are going to get on our last nerve first. I mean, that's just life. But is God using a Laban to shape us? Now, I'm the first to say, I'd rather go through life without a Laban. But, we say life comes with lemons. In this lesson, life comes with Labans. But more importantly, remember this. Life may come with Labans, but life also comes with God. Drew, come lead us in a